Now, according to the February 2026 data from the pro-LGBT human rights campaign, more than 550 companies, yes, you heard me right, 550 companies are bankrolling the transgendering of children. This includes paying for the puberty blockers, hormones, and reconstructive surgical procedures for minors. Well, the organization of our next guest is confronting those businesses in hopes of bringing down that number, shedding light on what these corporations are doing. Joining me now in studio is Greg Scott. He is the Executive Vice President at 1792 Exchange. Greg, welcome to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Maureen.
Simplify. 1792, tell our folks what that's about.
Well, 1792 Exchange is America's leading provider of actionable data on corporate bias. The primary resource that we provide is our corporate bias ratings database. We look at the policies and the behaviors of more than 4,500 publicly traded companies and expose whether they're involved in things like ESG, DEI, whether they're depending on the Southern Poverty Law Center or Human Rights Campaign to make non-business decisions, but do them nonetheless.
Do a lot of these corporations think that's hidden from the public?
Well, it's not hidden anymore.
Right. But, I mean, they kind of they've been getting away with it because, you know, you shop in a store, you don't know where they're sending their profits. You don't know what they're aligned with. But in this age of exposure, it's shining a light on it.
Yeah, whether they think it's hidden or not, it certainly isn't anymore because 1792 Exchange is committed to, like you said, shining the light on these policies. A lot of these corporations did, you mentioned, good news about corporations backing away from, Pride Month and all of these other things. A lot of these corporations just thought they were doing the right thing at a certain time in American history. But what we found is good news, that the more we engage these corporations directly, the more that we find that they understand that they have made a mistake. And 1792 is there as a helping hand to help businesses get back to business, provide them a roadmap to disentangle themselves from the ideological commitments that they made that were unwise, didn't serve their shareholders, didn't serve their employees, and definitely didn't serve the American public.
So talk about a little bit about, before we jump into the specific issue here, what's that engagement look like?
It is direct engagement with executives of these companies. It's been encouraging that a lot of companies do want to back out of this, and we're now in a situation where companies are calling us. I'm talking about not small mom and pop companies. I'm talking about Fortune 100 companies that are saying, hey, we saw your ratings on your website at 1792exchange.com, and we want to talk to you about these, and we want to adjust some corporate policies to more align with what the American people think and what's good for business.
So, Greg, did they just kind of like fall into this thinking it, like you said, it was a good thing to do? They didn't really hear any other counter voices to it, and so they just did it?
Yeah, the lack of counter voices is a big factor in this, Tony. And when we have groups like we work closely with the Heritage Foundation, with my former employer and our friends at Alliance Defending Freedom, with Boyer Research and others, we've formed this alliance who have come in together to say, hey, there is another way to look at this, and there is a better way to do business, and we're all here to help you do that.
All right, so let's talk about now how these corporations are funding the transgendering of children. How's that happening?
Well, Tony, it's not hyperbole to say that corporate America is right now engaged in a mass experiment on children. They're participating in it and they're funding it. The way that happens, I mean, you think about, you think about schools, you think about these children's hospitals, you think about these gender clinics, you think about Planned Parenthood. You're not necessarily thinking about companies that you would consider, kind of all-American companies participating in this, but they're doing it. And most of the time, that is through their employee insurance plans. So the people who are covered also usually have dependent coverage as well. So the way we determined that these 568 companies were in fact covering drugs and surgeries that permanently devastate a child's body is that they scored perfect in one category of the Human Rights Campaign Corporate Equality Index. And if they score perfect in that, it means they provide the coverage for the person who is covered and also for the dependent children.
So, Greg, let me ask you this question. The rating of the HRC, was that what influenced that policy, or are they just reporting on the policy?
It definitely influenced the policy. When Human Rights Campaign first began its Corporate Equality Index survey back in the early 2000s, I believe it was 2002, there was a very narrow group of policies that they asked companies to adopt, and it was essentially be nice to gay people. Which, as believers, we believe in the dignity of every.
That's not a hard one.
That's right. That's right. But that wasn't all they wanted. So over the years, I think there were seven distinct policies in the first edition. Now there's dozens. And in order to get that Human Rights Campaign Corporate Equality Index 100 sticker to put on your door or put on your website, you have to engage in a lot of behaviors that were not anticipated back in 2002.
But as a result, many corporations are bailing on that, are they not?
Yes, that's right. In fact, and this was some great news. In February, and it took Human Rights Campaign a long time to come out with the results of their last survey, 65% of Fortune 500 companies stopped taking the Corporate Equality Index survey in 1 year.
Just stopped taking it.
Yeah, 65%. And I have to believe, because we've had direct conversations with these companies, a lot of the executives in these companies don't even know who's filling the surveys out. Talking to a Fortune 25 financial institution, and the executive there said, I'm going to find out who fills that out because I don't want us to do it anymore. And they made good. They didn't fill it out this year. So 65% dropped off. Another thing is, corporations are funding Human Rights Campaign to the tune of millions of dollars. 27 sponsors dropped out from December 2024 to today. So the momentum is moving away from Human Rights Campaign.
And Greg, what you're trying to do, it's the same thing we've been advocating for years.
Yes.
If you're in business, just do business.
That's right.
I mean, if you make widgets, make widgets. Don't get in the public policy arena. I mean, don't use the profits that you get to skew policy that's contrary to what most Americans want.
Yeah, that's right, Tony. And I think when we walk into the room to meet with these corporate executives, a lot of times they see us as a breath of fresh air. Because what I like to tell them is, like, hey, you might have a certain experience with the left, and you might even have certain experiences with other conservative organizations, but you're not going to have that with us. We don't want you to be like us. We just want you to be fair. We just want you to do business.
Exactly.
We're not here to extract anything from you. We're here to help you. We actually provide them a roadmap of policies to get themselves disentangled from these ideological pursuits. And not only that, we even provide communications plan for them, because you'll have disaffected employees in New Jersey who are against the changes, and we help them with that as well.
Okay, Greg, so let's talk about these 550 corporations that are funding this gender transitioning of children. What do folks need to do to put a stop to that? I mean, first off, let's talk about some of these corporations. I mean, some of these are household names.
Yes, in fact, many of them are household names, and some you wouldn't expect. You would expect Amazon. They're doing it. You might expect Disney. They're doing it. But we're talking about Dollar Tree and General Mills, Kroger, Nike, Starbucks you'd expect, Wendy's, household names. CVS, yes.
Del Monte Food.
Yes.
As you said, Dollar Tree, DoorDash.
Why are these companies involved in transing children? It doesn't make any sense, and it really does have to stop. And they've got the moral and legal obligation to stop. This experimental gender transition movement is it has to come to an end.
So how can folks help with what you're doing?
Well, they can go to 1792exchange.com. They could look at these bias ratings, and if they work for these companies, they need to speak up. they need to speak up to their government representatives in where these companies are based. There's many things that we can do and that we should do, and it is very important, especially if we're going to be using these brands, and we're going to be putting our retirement into these companies,
right.
That we have the influence, because we do have influence. We find when we show up, we ended up winning.
All right, so one of the action items, if you work in one of these companies and go to 1792, the website again, 1792?
1792exchange.com.
All right, go there. You can get a list of all these, 550 of them. I see Wendy's on this. Wendy's really has some bad policies.
Yes, they do.
Which is really interesting from their origins. They've really drifted really into the left, the realm of the left in a big way.
Yeah, well, it's been said, and you've heard this before. If an institution or organization isn't constituted specifically to be conservative, it will be liberal eventually.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's what's happened to a lot of these companies.
What's sad about this is just do business. Just make hamburgers, all right? Because I avoid these places. I still don't go to Target because of what they've been doing over the years. I mean, they were really at the tip of the spear.
Yes.
When it came to this whole transgender initiative. So anyway, if you go to the 1792exchange.com, get the list, and if you work for one of these companies, communicate to your corporate structure that you're concerned about this. What's another step? Say you don't work for one of these companies. What can folks do?
Well, if you have any investment advisors and wealth managers in the audience, they should look at values-aligned investing. That is a growing movement right now. We've got about $200 billion in assets under management that use the 1792 exchange data to determine what investment decisions they're making.
So they can send that to their financial investor, or financial broker, and whatever, and just send them your ratings.
Yes, and then look at those financial tools that are out there. We had a firm approach us late last year. They were launching the Truth Social exchange traded funds, and those 5 funds that launched on December 31st of last year use 1792's data to determine what companies they're going to invest in.
All right, folks, check out that website. Greg, we just have about a minute left. Another issue, speaking about list, the Southern Poverty Law Centers, they are now being scrutinized as they've been indicted, but there are still donor-advised funds, donor platforms using SPLC's corrupted data.
Yes. So Benevity, which is the largest corporate charitable giving platform, what they do is they work with companies and they manage their employment charitable giving and their employer match programs. They have a filter on that software that uses Southern Poverty Law Center's hate list in order to exclude certain organizations from charitable giving, like Family Research Council, like Moms for Liberty, like ADF, like Focus on the Family. That's the most ridiculous one. And in fact, you probably saw the hearing last week where that was brought up, that Southern Poverty Law Center used to say that, hey, we don't discriminate against Christians. Look, Focus is not on our list. Now Focus is on the list.
If you believe the Bible when it comes to human sexuality or marriage, you're going to find yourself on the SPLC's list. But the question is, why are corporations using this list of a group connected in federal court to domestic terrorism and now indicted by the federal government? Greg, out of time. I want to thank you for joining us. Appreciate the work that you guys do at 1792.